Hello, guys out there. Sorry for the delay there. I had some camera technical difficulties there. Thanks again for joining me again for another day with P Eastlake Podcast and Soaps Pass. Anybody that's watching on my other channel. Today I have a throwback for anybody that's a Disney lover. This is Nik Ranieri. He animated Miko on Pocahontas, Kuzco on Emperor's New Groove, and I'm thrilled to have him aboard today. Let me bring him on. Hey, Nick, how you doing?
Good.
Yeah, I guess we both had some technical difficulties because right when I was getting ready to do the introduction, my camera didn't come through on my phone, so I had to restart the browser on my phone again.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got the times wrong. I got it in my head that it was 4 o'clock, but I realized that was your time. My time was 1. And so I was on the road when you contacted me. I was like, oh, you got to get back. So I finally got back.
It's okay. How you doing out there in California?
Better than Portland. I mean, they had to have an air check, some sort of air quality check. So most of the fires and things like that are happening Northern California, and I'm in Southern California. So we have haze, but it's not as bad as it has been in previous years.
Right. Okay. And what kind of new artwork or anything have you been up to this year? I mean, I know with the pandemic, people have been at home a lot recently.
I have been basically working from home for the last since March. We're working on The Simpsons, doing animation layout for them, and that's been good because live action shuts down, you don't go in, but animation you could pretty much do that remotely with ease. I'm not even sure if we're actually going to go back to the studio once this whole thing is over with. So I who knows? They may find the savings on overhead is worth keeping it remote. Who knows? But it's been fun.
Yeah. So Nick, I gotta say thank you for doing this. I've had Dave Prusma on, George Scribner, and a couple others from Disney on board here, and getting to get in contact again with Don Hahn. He told me to reach back out to him when the Howard documentary come to Disney Plus, which I've seen and loved. But I've been a fan of Disney for a long time. I've studied the history of Disney from Walt's time to when you guys came on. Yeah, I'm not the best drawer, of course, but I got a friend who loved Disney too. He used to call me his Disney historian because whenever he had a Disney question, he would call me and I would know the answer to when a Disney film came out and who was in it and all that.
Yeah.
And as soon I just moved, and as soon as I can find my book, I'm going to email you a copy. I had a drawing sketch that I did when I was younger of Miko.
Cool. Something I have to say, I think a lot of people, you say you can't draw and all that, and sometimes you tend to be fans of things that impress you and things like that. I mean, I like certain types of music and soundtracks and things like that, and I can't play a note on any instrument. So to me, that's kind of like, it just amazes me how the composing and things like that happen, and how that whole process. So that I understand that. You sort of sit back from afar and not being in the trenches day after day doing drawings and things like that. It kind of has a magic element to it, and so I can understand that.
Yeah, but I've been a fan of actually, you know what? The year Beauty and the Beast came out in '91, that was the year I was born.
So you're making me feel old. Is that how this is going to be?
Yeah.
It's okay. I have kids, they're, my kids are almost all of them are in their 20s. So You know, that's life goes by fast.
Tell me about it. I mean, I was already born when Beauty and the Beast came out, so my birthday was in July, and next year I'm feeling my age because next year I'll be 30.
Awesome. Wow. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I've been down here a little. I came down to LA in '88, so yeah, that's I've been here longer than you've been alive.
So Nick, where are you from, and when did you know that you wanted to get into animation?
Well, basically, okay, I was born in Toronto, Canada, so I'm Canadian, and I didn't really know I wanted to get into animation. In fact, I didn't even know about how animation was done or anything until I was in my late teens. But I knew I loved it. I watched all the Warner Brothers and Disney shows and all that stuff, and that stuff really appealed to me. Um, but it wasn't until I actually visited a school that taught animation that I realized what went into it, and it fascinated me. And so that was around the late '70s, and I started looking into it more and sensing that I had a feeling for it. I was able to grasp the concepts pretty easily and able to execute them well, and I through different different means, I was able to get into Sheridan College in Canada, and they had an animation program at the time, and then from there, I just strive to get into better situations that produce higher quality animation. I started in television. I went to commercials. It's all in the '80s, and then I found out that there was a feature being made in England called Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And so with a friend of mine, we just traveled to England, shared costs, and and we got our job in London working on Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and that sort of started the thing going as far as my connection with Disney.
Did you have a favorite Disney movie?
Favorite Disney movie? Yes. I think my favorite Disney movie for the longest time was Pinocchio. And the reason why is because Pinocchio was the first Disney movie, that actually made me laugh out loud. And the majority of my interest was in comedy, and I love sitcoms, and the Warner Brothers cartoons, those things. Those are the ones that shaped my sensibilities as far as performance and acting and things like that. When I finally did get into animation,
Right.
and the Disney films, although beautiful, didn't have the sharp wit that the Warner cartoons had. Even their shorts weren't as high quality of writing as, say, some of the works of Chuck Jones or Bob Clinton or Tex Avery or some of those guys. So those were that was for Disney. That was the film that the whole thing, with the Lampwick and the card, and Dishonest John gave me, and the Fox, PI, we're wasting precious time, all that stuff. I just thought that's the type of humor I really liked, and so that's what I was drawn towards. So and of course Pinocchio is beautiful too. It's an amazing piece of art. So that's the one that I really gravitated towards.
Coincidentally, Pinocchio. I'm sure my mother gave me some Disney tapes before then, but from my early childhood memory, Pinocchio. Back when Disney was coming out on tape as Disney Masterpiece Collection and Classics.
Yeah,
I had that with the Aladdin promotion at the beginning of the tape. That was one of my first early videos. That and Fantasia. And Fantasia was kind of the reason why I liked classical music as a kid. Yeah.
Hey, classical music, traditional music, things like that. I'm sure my love for soundtracks and things like that came from music from animation. A lot of the music classical music and things like that from different Warner Brothers shorts that Carl Stalling used to compose. He would take stuff from classical music and infuse it into the actual cartoons. And so when I started listening to classical music, I go, hey, I've heard that tune before. Where have I heard it? Oh yeah, that's where Bugs Bunny is cutting Elmer Fudd's hair and things like that. So you get a sense for the classics from a source that's not exactly classical.
And I guess it's going to be weird looking at Elmer Fudd now, since I'm sure you heard he took away his gun now, hunting gun. So
I can't take that stuff. There are things that if you try to cover it up, it's just going to repeat the same stuff over again. If people don't learn from their mistakes, and then they're doomed to repeat them. I don't know. Just taking the cigarette out of Pecos Bill's mouth and stuff like that. It's just, come on. You can't have a discussion with your kids and say, smoking will kill you. Doesn't matter what you see on TV. It's like, don't be an idiot and smoke. I mean. Right. Sorry for those smokers out there. I didn't mean it. But I mean, I don't know. I think people are being overprotective sometimes. That's one of the cases. What do they replace it with? I mean, I haven't even seen any of those. Do they replace it with anything?
I haven't either. I have no idea. When I heard about it, I was like, okay, it's gonna look weird now, so I don't know if I'm gonna check it out. But I haven't seen or heard anything about it since they said it.
Yeah. So I'm hoping they give up that idea personally.
Yeah. So when you was working on Roger Rabbit, you then came to Disney afterwards, correct?
Yes, basically after Roger Rabbit, the Disney company wanted to get some of the animators that worked on Roger Rabbit and to come over to LA. At that time, I had called while I was still at the studio in London to get an interview, and I actually talked to the director of Little Mermaid, and I said I'd really like to come and work at Disney Studios. And so myself and another animator named James Baxter, we took a trip to LA and got ourselves jobs. Mm-hmm. We didn't even know that they were officially courting the animators that worked on the film. So we stupidly came in and they gave us minimum, low wages because we had, foolishly came in by our own accord and got jobs. And everybody else that they were courting were turning him down, and they kept raising the prices to get him over. And it's like, so we sort of gave them a gift by presenting ourselves as willing hirees off the bat. But we got in. That was the important thing. And once I got in, we started right on Mermaid. And I was looking at the designs of Mermaid. And I just gotten off, drawing Roger for 8 months. And I'm looking at the designs. I'm saying, please don't put me on Ariel. Please don't put me on Ariel. And they're going, Nick, we want to put you on Ariel. And I'm like, great.
Right.
So I sweated through, I don't know, a couple of weeks on Ariel. And if it wasn't for the head of cleanup, Philo, going over and fixing some of my drawings, I don't know if I would have still been working there. But eventually they said, we can see you're struggling on Ariel. So why don't you go on to Ursela instead, which was a lot easier. The character is still complicated, but there are ways that her face is constructed that you're able to work out construction for it, whereas Ariel is basically just this, a circle. And if you put the eyes too high or too low in this space, it doesn't look like her. And so it was really difficult for me to work out that design, especially after drawing a rabbit for 8 months. I remember going to Glenn Keane and saying, "Hey, can you give me a drawing?" And he whipped this thing off really quick. "Here you go." And I'm like, no way I'm going to be able to reproduce that, So I went to Mark Henn and I asked him, and Mark says, "Here, do this." I had these 2 drawings. I can't reproduce them. I had to do my best, but thankfully they took me off that and allowed me to ease into the position a little better. And even then, at the end of Mermaid, I was still considered someone who, if they had not needed people, would have been laid off.
Right.
Just because I guess they weren't happy with my work or whatever the case. They said, we would have laid you off, but Rescuers Down Under needs animators, so we want you to go onto that. So it's like I was saved due to that. And then on Rescuers, that was a completely different situation. That I was able to really shine on that one. So that was a good experience.
So before I comment on Rescuers, I want to ask you one question I've been asking a lot of people, man. Maybe you can help me out with this since you animated Roger. Did Roger get a babe like Jessica Rabbit? How did that silly rabbit get someone like that?
Well, didn't they say it's like he makes me laugh? Sense of humor, Never worked for me for years.
Well, I'm looking at this hot babe. I'm like, man, she is gorgeous. And then it's like you looking at Roger, and I'm like, he way out there. I mean, he Eddie wanted to choke him a couple of times before giving him that big kiss at the very end of the movie. And the same question he asked her, like, seriously, what do you see in that guy? He makes me laugh.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? It's so funny because don't you ever see this sometimes? I remember once this was right after Roger Rabbit. We were at a presentation or something, we're doing a talk about it or something. And afterwards we did some signings, and this is somewhere around 1990 or something like that. This beautiful woman walks up to me and she says, "Can you sign and do me a little sketch?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'll do you a sketch anytime." And then I did this little sketch of Roger Rabbit, and it's like, "Who do you want to make it out to?" And she goes to Jim or whoever. And I'm like, "Jim?" And I thought it was for her. And then this big sort of schlempy sort of guy comes up and she goes, "Yeah, it's my boyfriend." And I'm like, how do you rate someone like this? You're definitely, I don't know this guy. I don't know.
No mysteries, Nick.
Yeah.
Man. But that animation. When I looked at Roger Rabbit as a kid, because that wasn't the first film I saw with live action and animation. Mary Poppins was, which I still love today. Never seen Bedknobs and Broomsticks. I love Pete's Dragon. So when I saw Roger Rabbit, that was a good film. And but then looking at Jessica, it's like, how the heck someone like Roger get someone like that with some legs and the body, and the scene where her and Bob Hopkins is in his office, and he's like, "What a wife!" It's like, even though she's a cartoon, he wants to get up in there.
Oh yeah. They pushed the boundaries on that film, I'll have to say.
Yeah, that was Steven Spielberg and Bob Zemeckis, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Steven. It was mostly Bob. Steven came by every now and then. It was so funny because we were pretty much lived there at that studio while that thing was going on, because we had 6 months or something to get this thing done. There was like 50 minutes of animation to do, and that was a huge amount because it all had to be done on every single frame.
Right.
So yeah, we practically lived there, and every now and then Spielberg would come in, and this was almost like showing his friends this toy that he had. It was different celebrities coming through. Here's the studio. You want to see some of the dailies that of the scenes that have come through and all that, and so that was pretty much a weekly occurrence. I remember once I was working there on a weekend, and very few people were there. It was, in fact, I think it was just me and two other people. We were working away, and in walked Spielberg, and I sat right next to the door, so nobody came through without me seeing who it was.
Right.
That's just where I was seated. He came in with his kid, and he basically showed him some scenes, and then he left. And I found out later that kid was Christian Bale, who was working on Empire of the Sun at the time. It's like, I guess they were in the area. It's like, hey, let's go. I'll show you some stuff from Roger Rabbit, and that was it. So I didn't really talk to him or anything, but the best one that came through was Jim Henson, and so I was able to talk a bit with Jim Henson and tell him how much I loved his work and all that, and took a picture with him, and that was great. That was a great experience working on that film.
So Rescue, that was one of my favorite as a kid. I love the Rescuers. I mean, I did the one Down Under. I think what drove me the most to it was, and I've always said I should have been a music composer, even though I don't play an instrument. But the music in the Rescuers Down Under was so it embraced me, and all the background of Australia. It's like, and I may sound crazy, but it's like when you look at a movie like that, even though it's animation, it makes you want to travel and just go to mountains or Australia, even though I've never been there, because it just embraced me as a kid. And both Rescue movies were my favorite. And it wasn't until watching Waking Sleeping Beauty when I found out, unfortunately, that movie didn't do well. Add something like that.
That movie suffered from the people that came in, Katzenberg and Eisner and all that. They had a certain way of figuring out what was a hit, what would be a hit, and what wasn't a hit, and all that stuff. And they applied it to the animation. Okay, so what they did, this is secondary information that I'm pretty sure this is what happened, but I could be wrong on little points. But as far as I know, they took a look and looked at what films made the most money in their initial release, and even as far as maybe some subsequent releases, and they found out that Rescuers, the original one, did very well. So they thought, well, let's do a sequel to that, because obviously it did very well.
Right.
So they got this thing going. They got it into production, and they were so up to their eyeballs in production on Rescuers Down Under that they decided to give an anticipation to the audience and re-release the original in the theaters. Well, the original re-release, the original when it was re-released, did so poorly that they were like, "Oh no one's interested in this. We're making a sequel to a movie that no one wants to see." And so at that point, Peter Schneider, one of the execs, had a meeting with all the people who were working on the film, and basically said, "Okay, well, we know that this is not going to be a big film, but we're too far into it. So basically, what we need to do is just get it done and move on. Okay, so let's just knuckle down, get this thing done, and let's move on." And I'm thinking, is this like a pep talk or something? Because it doesn't really make me excited about the picture, right?
Right.
But again, they got the thing done. I think it looks beautiful, but they didn't have confidence in it. so they didn't promote it very well. And in fact, what the head of story, Ed Gombert, said that once he was in a McDonald's, right, and they had the toys there as premiums, and he saw a little kid say to his mother, "Mommy, mommy, rescuer's up and down," and she said back to him, "No, no, no, it's okay. We'll watch it on TV instead. We won't go to the theater." So basically, what they thought was that Rescuers Down Under was a movie version of Rescue Rangers. So they thought, well, that's on TV. Why would I go to the theater to see it? So it was lack of promotion, lack of that type of thing, and also so they didn't put a lot of money into the promotion of it. So there's a lot of reasons why that movie didn't do well, and in fact, the director, Mike Gabriel, said that when they put they did test audiences for the film, it got huge numbers, high numbers, and all the questions were, would you tell people to go see this? And everyone's going, yes, yes, go see this movie, all this. After it came out and it didn't do well, I went to Mike and I said, but you said the preview audiences all said that they would tell other people to go see it. And Mike just goes, well, I guess they lied. So, okay, I guess that's a reason.
Yeah. I love that movie, and I think the one thing they did was I like how they revisited the romance of Bianca and Bernard. Y'all did kind of like a soap opera movie where y'all added Jake into the picture, and he was hitting on Bianca and Bernard throughout the whole movie, trying to propose to her. And when they rescued Cody, he finally got the chance to propose. And I've often said, well, why didn't well, not directly to you, but Disney in general, I've said, why didn't they ever make a part 3 where we could see where Bernard and Bianca are today after they get married?
Numbers, money, that's the reason, I tell you something, it's so funny. I remember while we were working on the picture, Mike Gabriel, the director, he got this huge, like 10-page letter from a fan who was obsessed over Bianca and laid out all of this stuff about how she needs to be drawn properly. Do not do this. Do this. I'm going to be very upset if you don't do it this way, if you don't make Bianca look this way, and all this. And Mike was like reading this, and he's like scared.
Oh my gosh!
I just thought, wow, there's somebody who is really into Bianca.
Yeah, either that or her portrayer from Green Acres.
Yeah, that was one of the things I wanted. I wanted them to put a line in there where she goes, Bernard, hotcakes, but they wouldn't do it. So, but anyways, yeah. So yeah, you've got a lot of people who are very intense fans. Let's put it that way. Right. But we never heard back from him, so I assume he liked the portrayal, or he's in jail. Either one, I don't know.
Yeah, I've never heard that before. Wow. Well, I got a clip for you to look at. This is one of my funny clips of the Rescuers Down Under. I'm gonna turn my phone around so you can see it. This clip right here. If I can get the volume going.
Oh.
These are not Joanna eggs.
Funny, she's getting the eggs from him, and he doesn't. Like, did you take one of my eggs?
You know something? That is like the brilliance of Duncan Marjoribanks. I mean, when he was working on that shot, we were looking at the dailies, and it's just like, wow, that is some great stuff. That is, you never know about the concepts and how much is the animator, how much is based on the storyboards, but he did such a great job on that. And then George C. Scott, what a great voice! You know, I think one of his last performances. You know,
Yeah.
But, yeah, that was a great piece of work that he did.
Yeah, he really fit that, and so did John Candy as Wilbur.
But that guy was great. I mean, John Candy was amazing. We went over to his studio and for a recording session, and he was just so great. He was like, "You want me to do it again? I'll do it again. I'll try a different way." You know, all this stuff. And afterwards, he took us all around to get a tour of his little studio there, which was in Santa Monica. And he was just the nicest guy. When he died a couple of years later, I was very sad because, and he even talked about it while we were meeting with him. He basically said that he didn't say it in so many words, but he inferred that he wouldn't be as bankable a star if he lost weight, which to me is incredibly sad.
Yeah.
You know? And that's eventually what got him, what killed him. He just got up to such a huge weight, and then, you know, the situation of the movie he was filming, they were filming out in the desert and all that. And so yeah, that was a very sad situation, but nicest guy in the world, and you know, it was a pleasure to animate to that voice. It was just he gave so much to that role.
Yeah.
And I say this a lot, you know, there's one great thing about working at Disney. Most of the actors and performers they get, the animation, the characters animate themselves in a way. You can see in your head these performances. You don't even have to film the people recording them. You can hear it. You can see it in their voice. I know that sounds weird, but you can.
Oh, yeah.
So easy to visualize it. And he was one of the great ones for that.
Yeah. Well, you know, like I said, Rescuers Down Under was just like the first one was one of my favorites, and that's one of the couple of movies from that time era that I always treasure. Even today, you know, I'm a big kid at heart, so whenever I'm on Disney Plus, I come across it. I check it out from time to time, and I got another clip for you. This theme right here that was in the movie is one of my favorite background musics. And I play it today in my truck when I'm making my deliveries, whenever I play the CD. But this is the scene right here with the music. That's one of my favorite scenes right there.
That's a great scene. Glenn did a great job. And you know, that's Bruce Broughton, amazing. I mean, that guy. I mean, and again, he's one of those people that worked with some of the classic composers of the 70s. He got his start in the 70s working with, you know, people like Jerry Goldsmith and you know, people like that. So it just, you work with that, you learn from those people, and then you become a master yourself. And that is one of the best soundtracks that Disney's ever produced. It really is. Absolutely. And Glenn did a great job again. That whole eagle flight scene is, yeah, just amazing.
Hey, it's cool. I won't tell Glenn that you said that Marahute has an ego. I won't. So how did it come about for you when you was chosen to work on Lumiere for Beauty and the Beast?
Well, the interesting thing about that was that one situation feeds another. As I went over to Rescuers Down Under after that, as part of this group that they didn't know what to do with. These are the people that were going to let go. Animation wasn't quite ready. I mean, they initially put us all, there was like 8 of us, they put us all on the Mouse Doctor as animators. Now the Mouse Doctor has like 5 or 6 scenes. You can't supply work for 8 animators on 5 or 6 scenes of a character. So we knew that, you know, we're probably not going to be working on a Mouse Doctor, whatever. But they didn't have a lot ready for us because things were still going through rewrites. At the same time, they were doing a thing for the parks in another building. It was called Cranium Command, and it was for the Pavilions of Life attraction at Disneyland, the Disney World. And they asked a bunch of us to go over and work on it. And at that point, Rob Minkoff, who was the director on one of the directors on Lion King, he was directing this thing. And we went over and started to work on this Cranium Command thing. About a third of the way through, Rob was asked to direct the second Roger Rabbit short in Florida. So he left the project, and Kirk Wise and Gary Trousdale came on to the picture to finish up the directorial work on Cranium Command. They gave me the last, it was like a 45-foot scene. It was, well, that doesn't mean anything. Probably about a minute long, this scene of general knowledge. At the end, he was like, well, Buzzy, you got this, and you're doing great, kid, and blah, 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 and all this. And so they gave that to me, and I worked on it, and they really liked the result. When I got back, after I finished with that, I got back to animating on Rescuers Down Under, and the directors on Rescuers brought me into their office, and they said, we just saw your work on Cranium Command and that general knowledge scene that you did. And I started to go, uh-oh. So I started to apologize. Well, I only had a week. I wasn't able to finish it in time the way I really would have liked to. I tried my best. And they're going, we liked it. We wanted to know if you wanted to work on Wilbur. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. Well, at the same time, Wilbur was supervised by Jorn Klubian. And Jorn Klubian was taking a tremendous amount of time off for personal reasons. And they needed somebody to take over the reins of supervising. And so they asked me, would you be interested in supervising Wilbur? And I said, we got 3 months production left. What's there to supervise? The character's designed. Everyone's got their assignments. What's there left to supervise? And they said, well, you'll get your name in the supervising credits. And I'm like, okay, I'll take that. Sure. Okay. So after that, Beauty and the Beast was the next one up. And who was directing Beauty and the Beast? Kirk and Gary, who worked on Cranium Command. And they said, hey, we like working with Nik, so let's bring him on and give him Lumiere. At the same time, Duncan Marjoribanks left the studio. I think he was going to be Lumiere, but he left. He didn't want to. He wanted to go to England or something. I don't know where he went, but he left the studio. So that opened up a spot. So all these things sort of fell into place. Right. And because I worked with Kirk and Gary, and I had the supervising thing on Rescuers, and a couple of people left, which opened up space and all this stuff. Because of that, I got the role of Lumiere on Beauty and the Beast, and that was one intense year from start to finish. It was a year of just constant work. That was a very tight production schedule.
Yeah, I was really surprised when I heard that y'all had like a year to do that, because I know animation, it takes like 4 years to do that. And then on top of that, y'all had Howard Ashman, who passed away, unfortunately, while y'all was making the movie. That was, it was really airtight. And from what I understand, Don Hahn mentioned that y'all had an early cut of the movie. It was kind of an English kind of cut, but that didn't work. So they brought in Kirk. Y'all did another version of the movie, which is what we know today. but to do it in a year, I mean, that's
Yeah. The English version was done way before the years or production even started, and before even Howard Ashman got involved. Once they turned down the British version, they went full force, brought Howard in, reconstructed the whole thing. All the songs came in and all that. That year also included waiting time. There was a good month where we had no work, and I did test scenes and things like that, trying to keep busy. I actually did the maquette sculpture. I can't show it to you because it's oh, maybe I can. Maybe I can. Okay. Sorry here. I know this is live.
it's okay.
Hold on. It's in my closet here. Let's see if I can pull it out without. So yeah. So this little guy, kind of hard to see because it's, hold on. Can I get a better view of this?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
There he is.
I'm trying to cut out the light. There we go. So that's the maquette. I sculpted this early on because I had nothing else to do, and I needed to know how this character was shaped and how to work them from different angles. So I just figured I might as well do a sculpture to give me a better idea. And then at the end of about halfway through, Don Hahn came to me and says, "Hey, can we just cast your sculpture because it seems to work?" And I said, "Sure." So that was the official maquette for the show.
Yeah.
But once we did get started, so maybe it was less than a year, maybe it was like 11 months, because there was some time there where there wasn't much going on early. Sometimes you basically have to wait around for things to get going, and which is good. You don't want to do a lot of stuff and then have it thrown out. And even then, because of Be Our Guest, there's a lot of stuff thrown out when it was suggested that they sing the song to Belle instead of Maurice. And
right.
That had to be changed. And that, again, talk about a trooper. Howard Ashman was sick during the production of that thing, but even from his sickbed, he rewrote those lyrics, and worked out that the whole, the change from Maurice to Belle and all that. It was pretty amazing. He was very prolific.
Yeah, and it's ironic too that because a few years ago I actually went by Howard Ashman's grave because he's from where I'm at in Baltimore, and watching his documentary about him doing plays and then doing Mermaid and Beauty and even some of Aladdin. A lot of how he does it kind of gave some spark juice into me because I'm a writer as well, and I've done some short films while I was in college, and it's watching you guys doing the making of these movies. It felt really like, it was fun times, but it was also some hard times, and then it felt like it kind of symbolized when I was in college. It's like going to university. Your professor gives you a task to do, and you got X amount of time to do it, and it felt like fun times.
It is. It's very difficult. Not only animation itself, which can be very tedious. I mean, if you're talking to people and say, yeah, you have to draw each of these drawings 12 to 24 times just to get a second of film. People are like, ugh, that sounds monotonous. But you don't think of it that way. You think of it as a means to an end. You construct this performance, moving these characters through a perceived third dimension. Well, we're talking drawing here, not CGI, because in CGI it's a perceived third dimension, but it really is kind of a cyber dimension, But on 2D, you're working on flat paper, and And that is some of the most difficult things to do, especially when you have an idea of what you want, but the limitations of paper and the 2D flat surface really make it difficult. I mean, I like to describe it as there was a scene in Emperor's New Groove where Kuzco goes, "Whoa, no touchy, no touchy, no touch." Right? And I always thought, the fact that he was profile, okay, and he was doing this to Kron. It was like, no touch. The fact that I had to animate the perspective on the hands doing that,
Right.
in CGI, you just go do this, and then you rotate the camera, and it'll do this, and it'll be fine. In hand drawn, you actually have to work out the drawings of the fingers and make it work in supposedly 3 dimensions, but it's not.
Right.
So there's a lot of perspective and things like that you got to deal with. It's not as simple as some of the other things. Whereas on the reverse, you also have the freedom to create anything you want. In CGI, if you want to do some gag or something like that, well, you have to create this object. He picks up this. He has to create that. I have to make some sort of object that he can hold and model it. Whereas in 2D, you just quickly draw it and you get the point across, and people go, "Yeah, okay, that's great. Let's do that." So there's a freedom and a simplicity to hand drawn that in some cases is not there in CGI. At least when I worked in CGI, everything's is progressing so much now that eventually they may not even need animators.
Yeah, they're going to invent robots to be the next animators next. Just like when you go to the market and you got self checkouts, it's going to be less cashiers.
I remember once somebody telling me that in the CGI, a CGI animator, he's saying, I'm saying, technology is going to be to the point where they won't even need you. And he goes, no, you don't understand. We're animators, we're actors. We bring a subtlety and all this. And I'm saying, no, what's going to happen is they're going to be able to put dots on people's faces. And then they're going to say, "Hey, animator, clean this up." And you're going to say, "Don't you want my acting?" Look, we got, I don't know, Robert De Niro with dots on his face. You think you're a better actor than Robert De Niro? Just shut up and do the fixes. And that's all it is, So if you think to the CGI, if you think your job is secure, like we thought our job was secure, progress can put a lot of people out of work. And so don't think you're so secure that they're going to that your job's going to be safe where everybody else isn't. So
right,
who knows?
Yeah. I gotta tell you, I never had this conversation with nobody else from Disney on here, so you'll be the first when I tell you this. So when Disney came up with the idea to make all the movies 3D and erase 2D, I was a little disappointed because I grew up in that era where it was just 2D. I love the 2D animation, and that's what I love. And I always thought of 3D as kind of like a 3D video game, computer game. And I mean, I do like Toy Story and Pixar films, but because it was Walt's days where they did the 2D, I've always thought that was just a separate thing. When Disney was always going to do 2D, and 3D would just be Pixar, because 2D was the real at heart, and 3D was like I said, like a video game, like a computer game. And when it became a joint, then 3D kind of took over where y'all did and DreamWorks was doing it, everybody was doing it. I was like, I'm not feeling it, but I've slowly come around to loving 3D. I think 3D is,
I don't hate 3D. I think 3D is great. I mean, I'm with you. The Toy Story movies are some of my favorite. My favorite franchise of Pixar is Toy Story movies. Those films have such strong character, strong stories. They really are a joy to watch. I really like them a lot. and a lot of the other ones as well. Incredibles and Monsters. They're great. I personally believe that both can exist in the media.
Right.
I don't feel that hand-drawn animation is to film as silent films are to sound films. I just don't think that, because I would think of it more as black and white to color, and people still do black and white films nowadays. It's a style, a noir. So that's fine. But no one really does silent films, So most people, think that sound films are pretty much what films are. I mean, you have once in a while you'll have like The Artist or things like that, but most people don't make silent movies anymore. So I think that 2D animation is in itself a art form and can exist and can do things CGI can't. There's a certain graphic look to films that you can get in hand-drawn that CGI won't allow,
Right.
that would look bizarre. But it's going to take people with vision and support from the studios to actually have this make a comeback.
Right.
And we're hoping that, films like Klaus and things like that will help push the interest a little. I don't know how much that film has pushed the interest, but it was a beautiful looking film. So,
Right.
and it was hand drawn, and so let's just time will tell. My fear is that I'll be too old to animate by the time it does come back. So we'll see.
Well, you're still in your 30s, so you still got plenty of years to go,
Right.
Now, speaking of, you talked about Kuzco. I liked Emperor's New Groove, and y'all took Kuzco on one heck of a journey. He was this himself guy to a caring guy, and it kind of reminded me of Woody and Buzz, kind of the buddy like, where y'all had him and Pacha throughout the whole movie. I mean, Pacha was like, I'm done with this guy, but he saves his life and helps him go back from a llama to a human again. And I like the end where they went, ha, boom, baby, both at the same time. But it was a good movie, and y'all having Eartha Kitt as Yzma, one of the most ugliest characters. I mean, the scene where Crunk entered her room and she was like, "What? This had better be good," with them olives coming out her eyes, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's."
The cucumbers, yeah. Hey, I that cast is amazing. Because I remember working on the first iteration of that Kingdom of the Sun, and Eartha Kitt was great as a voice person, but I didn't realize how good her comic timing was. When it finally switched over to Emperor's New Groove, the lines and everything, the way she delivered them, that whole section about, I'll put this box in another box, and I'll put that box, and I'll mail it to myself, and when it comes, I'll smash it with it. That is great stuff. She did a great job on that character, switching from this sort of serious villainous Cruella de Vil type character to this wacky, Warner Brothers type character. Let's face it, that movie was, to me, I always tell people, that's the movie I would have loved to have worked on had I not, because it was a Warner Brothers feature. It's what the comedy, the pacing, the jokes, all that stuff. That was the type of movie I would have loved to continue to work on, and they just promoted it so poorly that it's in its initial release, it really didn't do as well as it could have. Although it still did amazing, considering that it wasn't promoted very well. It got within 20 million of 100 million. which was pretty amazing for a film with no publicity and no promotion. So, and then it just built up a cult following over the years. I get more comments on that film than any of the other ones I worked on.
And I'm curious too, you know, who came up with the idea for Kronk, because he was an interesting character too, but the idea that he had the devil on this end and the angel on this end, nobody could see that. Like the scene where Yzma is looking at Kuzco and Pacha, like, what's going on? And they're like, you know, she was like a really, really big, stupid monkey named Kronk. Like, you know, he talking to himself. Like, who came up with that?
You know, I'm not sure who did, but I would say, you know, kudos to the writer Dave Reynolds and Chris Williams had a story and all that crew. They, you know, Mark Dindal and who was the director. I mean, basically, I think they just said go nuts. I remember seeing an earlier version of it while they were still trying to figure out the story. Mm-hmm. And they had a whole panel up. I walked into a story room, and they had this thing where Kuzco's walking down the hallway, and then you cut to Yzma, and she's walking down the hallway, and then you cut to this guard, and he's walking down the hallway, and then they bump into each other, and their theme music gets confused, you know? And they're like, wait a second, your theme music is interrupting my theme music. And I just thought, okay, I don't know if this will work, but if this is the direction they're going in, this is going to be great, you know? Wow. And so I was very happy with the fact that they just wanted to do something wacky after the initial Kingdom of the Sun was so grandiose. It was so epic. It was, I don't know how to describe it. That they had a cast of thousands. The whole idea of this celebration of this religious ceremony that was in the original, and they had a whole audience, and all this stuff was happening in it. It was just I remember watching the boards to go from that epic to this wacky comedy that was sort of based on the Defiant Ones, you know. If you know that movie where they get handcuffed together, they're trying to escape from jail. It was I can't remember who was it. It was Cindy Poitier, and I can't remember, but that was sort of the idea. They get stuck together. They're in the jungle, and they have to rely on each other to, you know, get to where they're going, and they both need each other, right? And that's sort of what they want to do. I mean, there was actually 3 movies. There was The Kingdom of the Sun, which was Roger Allers' big epic. Then there was Kingdom in the Sun, which changed hands and went over to Mark Dindal, and that was similar storyline to Emperor's New Groove, but it focused on the town, and the idea was to get Kuzco to care about the town he was about to destroy. So by meeting all the citizens of the town, he would feel sympathy. But it was so complicated because they had introduced so many different characters that they said, we'll never get this thing done. So they decided to go a different route and simplify it and just focus on the 4 main characters, which were Kronk and Yzma and Kuzco and Pacha, and get them, you know, worked out. And that eventually became Emperor's New Groove. So I was really happy with that because it lent a lot to personality and the characters' arcs, and each character goes through an arc and all that stuff. But it was infused with that sort of wacky type of comedy, which was great.
Yeah. I got a friend I've known since middle school who loves Emperor's New Groove. Every time me and him meet up, he always mocks the scene in the movie where they go, don't tell me, we're going to go over a huge waterfall. Right at the bottom, most likely, bring it on. Booyah! He always copies that scene of that. Every time me and him link up, he always talks about that movie. I'm like, dude.
Man, like I said, Matt, I'll tell you, they so many people ask me about that, and I get, you know, there are whole families that quote lines from that film to each other all the time. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Did you work on the sequel, Kronk's New Groove?
No, that was done by was it TV Animation, or it was, I wonder if it was what's the company that does the straight to video sequels? It was used to be done in Australia, but Disney Toon Animation or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't work on any of those. But I don't know. What did you think of it? I honestly, I feel embarrassed, but I haven't really seen it, or the series either.
Wow. So the Kronk, when they did Kuzco Going to School series, I thought that was, it was okay. I don't have a lot of memories of it because I was younger when they had it on Disney Channel, so I haven't seen it in a while. But since you brought it up, I'm gonna check it out. I got Disney Plus, and that's on there. The Kronk's New Groove, it was good. I just saw it the other day. It was really all about Kronk. They had Kuzco come on a few times where he says, I guess you're wondering what happened to me, but it was about Kronk and trying to impress his father, and he actually pretended that Pacho's wife in the movie, they tried to make it look like that was his wife. But it was okay, but
it was okay. I honestly, because I'm a child of the 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm.
When I heard the concept of Kronk's New Groove, I thought, okay, so they're basing this movie on a trope that has been in every sitcom in the 60s and 70s that you can name. Right. I mean, I've seen this idea. Oh, my father's coming. I need to impress him. So let's, lie to him, basically. I mean, sitcom after sitcom has done that to one form or another. So I was like, whatever. I guess if it suits them, it's about money. So whatever. I'm sure.
Other reference y'all got from the 60s and 70s in Emperor's New Groove was the fact that y'all had Tom Jones who sung the intros.
Yeah. That was great. He's I was very surprised that he was able to belt that out still. That was amazing.
Yeah. So talk about another one of my favorite movies that you worked on. You did Miko and Pocahontas.
Okay, well, Miko, basically, this connects to Rescuers in a way too. Okay. Early on, I was scheduled to work on Timon on Lion King, but again, Eric Goldberg and Mike Gabriel, who were directing Pocahontas, wanted me to go on to Pocahontas as well. And I thought, okay, so now what do I do? They want me to do Timon on Lion King, and they want me to do, at that time, it was Red Feather, which was a turkey character for Pocahontas. And it was going to be voiced by John Candy. And I thought, well, both are good characters. Timon is a great character. Red Feather is a good character. What do I choose? And I chose to work with the people that were easiest to get along with. I had a bad experience on Cranium Command with Rob Minkoff, who is a brilliant director and a great animator and all that, but in certain circumstances was very indecisive as far as approving scenes. And on Cranium, he would approve something in rough, and then when I'd clean it up, he would go, you know what would be better? And I'm like, what? And he goes, maybe if you don't do this, and maybe if you do that, and you don't do this, and you do that. It's like, dude, the time to make those decisions where I showed you in rough so that you could, so I didn't put all this work into it.
Right.
And it was just got to the point where it's like, I can't work this way. If you're going to change your mind after you approve something, I get that you want to have the freedom to maybe if something comes up that's a better idea that improves the scene. But what we were talking about is apples and oranges. Don't have them do this, have them do this. It's like, who cares? It's a gesture, that type of thing. So I thought, do I want to go through an entire feature like that? Because Rob was the second director on it. So I thought I had a better experience with Mike Gabriel on Rescuers, and Eric Goldberg was the other director, and I always wanted to work with Eric anyways, due solely to his work on with the genie on Aladdin. And so I thought that's the one I'll pick. When I got onto it, all hell broke loose. First of all, John Candy died, which was sad enough, but the character then, they wanted to go a more realistic type of direction with Pocahontas, so all the animals became mute. Right. And so there went the personality, and all of a sudden you got this turkey who is basically mute for the whole thing. You got these writers who are writing the script for Pocahontas, and they're focusing on John Smith and Pocahontas. And the other characters, well, who cares? Red Feather and Flit follow, and they just walk off, So it seemed like a whole lot of work for very little payoff. And I was really depressed because I gave up Timon to work on this dud of a character. And I went and talked with Glenn, and he's like, Nick, you got to find the expressions. You got to find what makes the character shine and all that. And I'm sitting there going, it's easy for you. You got this character is the star of the movie and has got a lot of depth. I got a, character turkey who's just basically going to be looking around, not doing anything for the entire film, and I have to draw all these stupid feathers. So basically, we talked a little bit more, and he said, "Well, does it have to be a turkey?" I said, "I don't know. I guess not." He said, "Well, what about a raccoon?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. Hasn't that been done?" He goes, "Name one raccoon character in Disney's history that's a main character." And I thought about it, and it's like, yeah, there really wasn't. So yeah, let's bring it up. And so we went to the directors, and they said, yeah, let's switch it to a raccoon instead of a turkey. And Miko was born, basically. And,
I love Miko. He was funny guy. My funny moment of watching Pocahontas with Miko was him trying to get that what was it, like a cookie or a bridge John Smith had, and he constantly kept trying to get more, and John Smith was turning around and they was falling out his bag and all that. He was a slippery character.
I love that scene because initially I don't think Miko was doing much in it. I'm not sure about this. I think I suggested that while he was dodging Flit, have the biscuits fly out and then have Miko collect them all while he's doing all that. Because initially I think it was him just going, hey, get away from me, Flit, right? And I said, well, Miko is just sort of in there and there's a cookie drop, but why don't you have them, filling out, give them something to do and all that. That was the best thing about working on that film was they included the animal characters, the animators, myself, Dave Brooksma, and Chris Buck in the story meetings to try to help our characters, flesh them out a bit.
Right.
Most of the time on that picture, maybe a third of the time, I was in story meetings trying to work out certain ideas for Miko and Flit and all that. And same with Brooksma and Buck. Right. So that was a great experience because I actually got a story credit on that. So that was something. That was something special. I really enjoyed working on that picture. It may not have been the most successful pictures, but it sure was a lot of fun to work on. Let's face it. I myself, Brooksma, and Buck, we had the easiest characters to do in a way. All the hyper realism of Pocahontas and John Smith. I mean, that stuff's tough to do. So.
Right.
we were sort of in a good place for that.
Yeah. And I can tell you have fun with it. I got another clip right here to show you. For some reason I used to watch this clip a lot when I did a little drawing of Miko when I was younger, and this is a clip of you actually talking about Miko right here.
Feel for the animals, but not sacrificing personality and character.
Your turkey.
Turkey character that actually spoke, and it was decided later on that silence is gold. We changed it to raccoon, and the raccoon had enough dexterity in his fingers and quickness that he could keep up with Flit and Pocahontas, because she's very energetic as well. And both Flit and Miko would play a part of sort of Pocahontas' conscience. Whereas
that was funny to me too, by the way.
Miko is more fun-like, sort of shows off two sides of Pocahontas' character in animal.
Yeah. Well, Matt, you know, that scene with the chess thing that was animated by Brian Ferguson, who was pretty much my, you know, right-hand man. The stuff that I couldn't handle, he handled. So I gave him lots of sequences and stuff. He did a great job on that character. That character from the animators that were on that character all the way up to the head of cleanup, Dave Nethery. To me, that is one of my most consistently high quality characters that I've ever worked on. There's certain films where I've worked on where certain scenes I go, "Ooh, I wish I could have done that one again." On Miko, there's not a lot of that. Most of it, pretty much all of it, is like looks really good, and I attribute that to the animators that I had and my head of cleanup as well on that, who did a great job. You know, the interesting thing about Miko was that, again, this hooks back. Remember, I talked about Duncan Marchbanks.
Right.
One of the things on Aladdin that really impressed me was his ability to animate Abu the monkey and how much expression he got out of him.
Right.
I relied heavily on dialogue for expressions, and the idea that pantomime, you have to come up with it yourself, always scared me. And I always thought, man, pantomime scares me. Where do you get the ideas? You basically have a blank piece of paper, and you got to come up with this whole performance.
Right.
So with Miko, I was forced to come up with a sort of a thought process for him. And one of the things that I thought of was inner dialogue. Like, what would he say if he could talk? So the scene with him with the big bowl of cherries and Percy, you know, he falls into it. So this way, falls into it, and he's like, you know, here's a cherry for you, and I'll take the bowl, right? And so coming up with all that interior dialogue helped me to come up with expressions for him. And it's interesting. The initial amount of screen time for Miko actually doubled by the end of the production, because all the stuff they wanted me to do, they didn't give me enough time to do it. So I had to open up the scene and make it longer so that his pantomime would read, and what they wanted conveyed in the scene would be seen, and that meant that the scene length had to be lengthened. So that was a learning experience as well.
You know, one scene in Pocahontas that I thought, even though it didn't happen, but I thought would have happened, was the scene where Percy is chasing Miko, and then they got stuck in the tree branch. I thought at one point he was going to probably bite off Miko's tail, because he was in the back end and Miko was in the front end, and he was chasing him. And I'm like, is he going to bite off his tail? But you know, y'all didn't reference that.
That's that wouldn't have been good.
Yeah,
you know, it's funny. The another thing they did, it allowed us to. One of the things they did is I was able to sort of do some interesting graphic ideas with that tail. The one thing they did was they had a storyboard. You know, when he falls into the water and Flit comes out and he's
Right.
spitting, and Mikkel climbs up, and the tail rises up and forms a bullseye, and Flit goes, and then, you know, anyway, the whole idea was initially it was just a shot of his butt. And I thought, well, maybe we can do this so that I'll animate the tail so that it comes up and goes into foreshortening so that it looks like a bullseye. And they like that idea.
Right.
So there's certain things you can do that help, that I don't know, you feel part of the process. You know, it's not all story, it's not all animation, it's not all sound or voice or anything. It's a collaborative effort, and that's the best thing. You get artists and writers and things who are top at their game. Put them all together, and you get a really good quality product. And it's great to be a part of a situation like that.
Yeah, I remember one of the most heartfelt moments about Pocahontas, because I interviewed actually one of your partners on Pocahontas. I had John Pomeroy on here twice.
Oh.
I'm going to talk with him in a few weeks again. I think one of the most heartfelt moments. Say it again.
Say hi to him for me. I haven't talked to John in years.
One of the most heartfelt things about Pocahontas to me as a kid, because I love Pocahontas in general. I still do today, mainly because of the music as well. But I think the interesting turn points was, of course, you have these two people who are in love with each other, Pocahontas and John Smith. And the hard point would be when Thomas shoots Kocoum and John Smith got blamed for that. Y'all didn't really resolve the fact that Thomas was the one who actually shot him, but John Smith took the blame for that. But then he saves Pocahontas' father's life when Ratcliffe was going to shoot him. That was an interesting
well, I mean,
there.
You watch the thing, and basically John Smith, you know, took the fall. They didn't know. They just heard a gunshot. Kocoum was dead. He couldn't say it. So basically, he sacrificed himself for Thomas's sake. You know, he said, "Get out of here, run!" And then they grabbed him. So it's kind of obviously that's artistic license. Nothing, but my thing is, honestly, it's Nakoma's fault. She's the one.
Yes,
She's the one that told Kocoum to go there. But hadn't it been for her opening her big mouth, none of that would have happened.
Right. It was her big mouth.
There are so many things. There's so many storyboard panels where we had like Nakoma hanging herself, things like that. Don't do to guilt.
I remember having
that did come up in the story meetings.
Remember my new friend who I mentioned who copied off of Emperor's New Groove all the time? We were talking about Pocahontas once, and I remember him. He actually said once a deleted scene of Pocahontas after that happened would have been Pocahontas slapping her for opening up her mouth.
Yeah, that's it. It's like you walk up and she's like, "What?" I just
right.
Yeah, couldn't shut up.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite songs from Pocahontas, and this is an instrumental version with just the music in it that I love, and I've loved this since I was a kid, and this is it right here. This is Just Around the River Band. I love that music in that song. Just Around the River Band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'll tell you a story. It's so funny. You know who Jeffrey Katzenberg is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we were in a meeting, and it was a story meeting or some type of meeting like that. It was a supervisor meeting. I can't remember the situation, but I was there. A bunch of us were there. Alan Menken was there. Katzenberg was there. They're always talking about, and usually they use scratch music to flesh out the boards because Menken needs the final to actually score to, so you can't score to a board. So basically, I think they took music from Last of the Mohicans or something like that. One of those big grandiose conclusion. They used the piece of the score so that when John Smith's leaving on the boat and Pocahontas runs up to the hill and you pull back and you watch the boat going away and all that stuff. This is beautiful music from I believe it's Last of the Mohicans, I think, or 1492 or one of those Columbus movies,
Right.
And I remember sitting there and Jeffrey's going, "Okay, now Alan, we need a big ending for this." And we just finished watching it with this scratch, this temp music. And he goes, "We need a really big, music thing." And Alan's going, yeah, I'm thinking, we'll put a little bit of, Just Around the Riverbed or maybe one of those. Goes, yeah, he goes, yeah. But we need something really, really big. And he goes, well, yeah, I was thinking Colors of the Wind or maybe, yeah. But we need something really big. I mean, really big. So in other words, it was almost like he wanted him to copy what was there because he fell in love with the scratch music so much that no matter what Alan did, it wasn't going to be as good. But as you can see, I think he did a good job because that last piece is really amazing.
Yeah. I kind of going back to your question. I was a fan of Jeffries. I mean, he worked at Paramount with Michael Eisner, came to Disney, and they helped kind of revamp the studio. And I couldn't really figure out why he left to do DreamWorks because he did so good there. But I know that him and Michael had kind of a spares, and that led to him parting ways. But I mean, did you work with him? Did you feel a change for you guys when he left? As far as the environment?
Oh yeah, I think so. People love Beauty and the Beast and all that, and because it was such a solid story, but it would not be the film it is without Jeffrey. I could say that. That guy, every time we had meetings, his goal was to push everybody to do the best that they possibly could. And he saw these as movies, not as animated cartoons. He wanted, mood. He wanted personality. He wanted character development. He pushed for all that stuff. Those meetings, those turnover meetings that he would go in, he would sit down, he would go through the boards, and it's like, okay, we don't need this part. We need something that's stronger. He would push all this stuff, and then he would allow the writers and the storyboard artists to go back, come up with stuff that would help that vision, and things like they were going to get rid of the intermediate portion, the bridge, I guess you could call it that, of Be Our Guest, when Cogsworth comes in, and the salt shaker, and 10 years we've been rusting, needing so much. They're going to get that because it breaks the story so much. So the great story artist Joe Ranft came in and boarded that whole section, sold it, But this is what Jeffrey brought to it. I think he pushed people to do better, and really, I think he lifted up the productions. Even on Aladdin, honestly, not all his ideas were gold, but and in some cases he would say that. He would do things like he says. I don't know what the solution is, but I know that's not it. So he would push people to think, okay, that's not what we need to do, but let's figure out something that will work, you know. So he was an integral part of that process. We did lose something when he left, you know.
Yeah, yeah. That the way you reminded me of a professor. I had a class where we had to do some. I took photography in college and filmmaking, and I had a professor in this art class I took, and I showed him some of this design that I drew, because he one of the best ideas that I was told, because again, I mentioned that I was not a good artist. He said if you could take a drawing, if you could take a picture of something, hang it up against the window and trace it, and then add something to it, you can maybe go off from there. So I kind of did that and showed it to him, and kind of like what you said, he said, it's something there, but I just don't know. And I'm sitting there going, well, if you don't know, where am I going to go with this? Because I have some ideas, but but you're a teacher, so it's like, okay. But once we talked about it, I was able to come up with something different and better, and it worked out. But just hearing you talk about how Jeffrey would say that made me think about my professor from that time.
Well, you know what? It's interesting because when I always try to do that, even with the people that are on the crew. I love to be able to say, I would never. I would try not to say, no, you have to think like me. I kind of want them to come up with their own ideas, and that's why I would give the animators chunks of shots of scenes to animate, so they get a running start, and they can say, okay, this is my section, and if it looks like crap, I have no one to blame but myself. And so I wanted to give them ownership of this of their section there. So I didn't want to be the one that came up with the idea unless they were really stuck. I had a situation of that on Princess and the Frog where one of the animators was doing this. Charlotte gets a frog stuck in her shirt, and she's trying to do this dance and all this, trying to get the frog out of her dress and all that. The animator really didn't know what to do with it, and it took us a while going back and forth trying to figure out how to best do this. So sometimes you have to do that, but other times I kind of like them to take on the initiative and solve it themselves. It makes it a more satisfying experience for them.
Right. Before I let you go, I got just a few more questions. The first one for me is I've asked everybody this, and I wanted to ask you this: what kind of music do you listen to?
Well, I mean, like I said, right now, because I'm a child of the 60s and 70s and stuff, I have a huge collection of television soundtracks and things like that. In fact, I was one of the producers on let's see, where is it? I actually was one of the producers on the Johnny Quest.
Oh yeah.
So I really love that type of music, and I actually put that album together and worked out the selections on it, and so I collect TV soundtracks and television themes and things like that. So that's the type of stuff I really enjoy. And then as far as popular music goes, well, anything. It's more about the song than it is the performers. Some songs I find that are performed by one or more people, or it depends. I have an eclectic taste.
Listen, that's how I am too. It really depends. I'm really an old school kind of guy because back in the day, they used to advertise a lot of 80s love music on TV with Time Life Music Collection. And,
Yeah.
you know, I into all the, you know, Hall & Oates, Doobie Brothers, Phil Collins, the song from And All of a Sudden a Gentleman, Love Lift Us Up Where We Belong. I love all that. And I still listen to all that today when I'm making my deliveries. I'm a delivery driver, so I got like CDs of all these classic 80s and 90s and 70s songs on there, and jazz. And I just made one CD with the scene with Fantasia where the dancing flowers. It's hard to describe that scene. It was that scene, and then the scene where they had the naked baby. Yeah, and the scene with the naked baby and the humans and all that music and Fantasia. That's which I thought was really weird as a kid. You got a naked baby running around with a horse. But
it's amazing your perception as a child. Like what?
Like this
but
was.
No,
this
I
was,
like all that. I like all that stuff. It's you know, and the thing about television soundtracks, it spans the gamut. You know, you can have anything from, you know, rock, soul, blues, everything can inspire what a TV theme song or a background music composition is. It depends on the situation and what the main action is, you know. So you get a wide variety from classical all the way to jazz. So and I think the only genre I'm not thrilled with would be like punk. and okay, I don't know. Rap is one of those things where it's got percussion, but not a lot of music. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I'm not into rap either. Trust me, I know.
But yeah, so but I think our tastes are pretty. There's a lot of similarities in there. So
absolutely. I got a friend who always kids me. He says, you know, Matt, because I was born in 91. He said, you know, Matt, you was born in the wrong era. You should have been in the 70s or 80s because you love all these 80s music and the 80s movies and all that. And I said, well, I can't help it. That's how I was brought up. And, you know, at that time, cable wasn't like how it was today. You know, we had very little channels, and he always advertised those kind of musics and stuff. And that's how I got hooked. So when I got older, I would buy the album and the CDs. And you know, I still remember as a kid when the music from Pocahontas was on the radio. If I Never Knew You with John Cedillo and Shanice, the music video to that song. Yeah. When I was on the radio, I still remember that, and I thought that was just that was beautiful.
Oh yeah. I mean, and it's so funny because I have a couple of composer friends. They worked at H&B Hanna-Barbera for a time, and they were able to go and they would get me. Myself and Proxima, they would get us Hanna-Barbera music, the Hoyt Curtin stuff from the Flintstones and some of those, the background cues and things like that. They get it from H&B and trade it to us, and we would give them, you know, Alan Menken demos and things like that. It would be trading music back and forth. So, you know, one hand washes the other, but
he's another great one too, Alan Menken. I got one of the CDs I got has Jody Benson recording Part of Your World. I listen to that all the time for some reason. I know it's a chick flick film in some ways, but I love Part of Your World. I listen to that all the time with her singing that.
Chick flick. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's a good movie. You know what? It's a really solid story. It's got a lot of heart and everything. And I don't know. There are varying degrees of chick flicks. Some Some of them are actually good, and others are just like, okay, I can't take any more of this. I have to get out of here. It's too much estrogen, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, depends. Depends on the movie.
Do you have any memories of working with Walt's nephew, Roy E. Disney?
Roy was great. He basically saved the studio and saved animation, and I've only interacted with him a couple of times. So he called me over to help out on Fantasia Continued and do some rough tests. This was in the mid-90s. And then I talked to him a little bit during a couple of rap parties. But, you know, he's a very busy guy, wasn't around a lot, always going different places and things. So I never really I got to know him. I mean, it's interesting because one of the times I talked with him, I actually told him that we have a common situation. My family, this is my family on my mother's side, once took in his maternal grandmother, Walt Disney's maternal grandmother, to live with them for a time. This was somewhere up in Huron, Lake Huron, in that area up in Canada. She lived with my family for several months, and Walt would visit as a child. So my grandfather and Walt Disney met as children.
Wow.
So there's a connection there. And I got my great aunts to tell me the story before they passed about that whole situation. I wrote down as much as possible. So one day, if I get to the Disney Family History Museum, I'm going to be able to, you know, give that story to somebody and see, you know, how accurate it is. Because, I mean, there's some time problems with that, where how old my grandfather was as opposed to how old Disney was and all that. So I'm not really sure about the timing, but they did say he was living there for a period of time in the house. So that was pretty cool. But Roy never, he goes, oh, that's very interesting. But he wasn't really, you know, interested in finding out anymore. So he never got back to me on that. But I just thought I'd at least need to tell him that. But yeah, he was a great friend and supporter of the animation portion of the studio. So
that's quite ironic that, you know, your great aunts knew Walt, and then years later you're working at his studio as an animator.
I know, isn't that amazing? Small world.
Yeah. I remember asking Dave Prusma and a few others this too. I was going to ask you this. I'm not sure how old you were at the time or what you were doing, but do you remember what you were doing when you heard that Walt Disney passed away in '66?
Probably watching an episode of Batman. I mean, I was, how old was I? I was like 5. I barely remember anything from when I was 5. That's you know, it's funny because most of the people that talk to some of the old timers, you know, Ward Kimball was famous saying, you know, Walt's dead and you missed him. So I was thankfully I was able to make it down here and work for Disney while a lot of those guys were still alive. So I was, even though I never met Walt Disney, I was still fortunate enough to meet Frank and Ollie and Ward Kimball, Mark Davis, you know, some of these people. That was an amazing thing to be able to you know, meet these men and learn from them. You know, I worked with Chuck Jones for a brief time on one of his first Roadrunner cartoons in the '90s that he produced, and that was an amazing experience too. So I got in just in time to meet some of these people before they left us. So that's a terrific honor.
And I guess that was, it's really, I thought as a fan, you might have felt, because this was a group of Walt's 9 old men who worked with Walt working on all these movies. And then you guys, the next generation of people that's coming in, y'all learning from them. As Glenn Keith put it, they were the masters for you guys. Y'all learned from them.
Well, yeah. I mean, I remember. I mean, I met the 9 old men, a lot of them, but I never really worked with them. The first sort of fan feeling that I got was when I got to work with, like I said, Chuck Jones, who was my favorite director, animation director,
right.
And I remember going over to his office, sitting down, and he says, "Okay, let's go through this Roadrunner scene." Now the Roadrunner is, and I'm going, yeah, okay, the Roadrunner, yeah. And in my mind, I'm going, I mean, issued a scene by Chuck Jones, and he's talking about the Roadrunner, and I'm here, and I'm not even listening to him. I'm just going nuts, like geeking out of my mind. But in my body, I'm going, yeah, oh, interesting. That was a thrill, just to get pitched an idea about, okay, this, and then the coyote gets something dropped on him, and he walks away like an accordion or whatever it was. But again, it was such a thrill to actually work with this man whose work I grew up with and just loved. So that's amazing.
Yeah. I loved a lot of Looney Tune episodes, moments. I think the funniest was the short film they did with I don't remember the one character, but Daffy Duck was in it with him. He was like Elmer Fudd, and Daffy Duck was stripping. He was like doing like a strip tease. I don't remember it was on YouTube before, and I downloaded the clip.
I know the one you mean, but it's been so long since I've seen any of these.
Yeah,
wow. That's like the 40s. That's one in the 40s, I believe.
Yeah.
Sure, it wasn't Porky Pig?
No, it was another guy who was similar to Elmer Fudd, but it wasn't Elmer Fudd. It was him.
Oh, wait a second. You're talking about like Egghead or one of those early late 30s ones or something?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The precursor to Elmer. Yeah.
But I was a fan of a lot of them, and I actually have 2 shorts on DVD where they had Humphrey Bogart come on board with Lauren Bacall, who I love. I love Humphrey movies.
Right, that's a clamp it to have not, or whatever. It was a joke on that movie and stuff. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, they used to say that those kind of cartoons with Bugs Bunny they would do stuff that Disney would not do. They used to say that back then.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And in fact, it's interesting. One of the things when they laid off the Warner's studio in the mid 50s, they laid off the animation crew, and Chuck Jones actually worked for a short time, a couple of months or so, at Disney Studios. And
wow.
At the end, after a couple of months, he saw the approval process and how it worked. And he said to Walt, he says, the only job worth having here is yours. Because he had to get through everything approved, whereas Warner's, they just sort of let them do what they wanted. You had,
right.
figureheads like Eddie Seltzer or Leon Schlesinger, who really, didn't care about anything as long as they were able to go up and accept Oscars for works that they had nothing to do with. They were happy. So they sort of left those crews alone, right? And sometimes they would come in. Chuck Jones used to tell a story about Eddie Seltzer coming in and going, "There's nothing funny about bullfights." And then he'd walk out, and Chuck looked at Michael Maltese and said, "We need to do a Bugs Bunny bullfighting picture," And I always thought that was funny, So anyway, but yeah, I guess he felt constricted at Disney, and eventually Warner's called everyone back, and they continued to produce until the early '60s. But yeah, it was interesting times.
Yeah. So Nick, what are you doing currently in the rest of 2020 going into 2021?
Well, like I said at the beginning, Matt, I'm sort of working on Simpsons in my lovely setup here, remotely, and we're into our 32nd season, and you just keep doing that until this craziness breaks, and we'll see what happens. If there's a 33rd season, then we'll do that. If there's a feature film, we'll do that. Who knows what's up, what's coming down the pike? I don't know. They don't tell us, and now it's even harder to find out because we're working remote. So you're not in the studio hearing all the buzz. You're sort of isolated. So. But it's a fun gig to work on, and working with a lot of great people. And just thankful to God that provides me with the opportunity to make money. So that's me. I can't ask for more than that.
You're right. That was, Simpsons is one of the longest running animated TV series that's still on the air today. Ironically, it's still pushing.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? And again, I've seen a lot of things on Facebook, and like they need to end. They passed their prime. They jumped the shark or whatever. But that show is still hugely popular. This show is still hugely popular throughout the world. Translated into many languages. I mean, which is interesting because there's a lot of topical humor, and so you kind of wonder, how does that translate in different areas of the world? But apparently it does. So it's more power to them, I guess. It provides work for a lot of artists, and a lot of ex-Disney people there: Kathy Zielinski, Adam Dykstra, Caroline Cruikshank, people like that worked for Disney in the past. So it's a good gig. I'm glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, that like I said, that's like the main only TV show that's still going strong today. That and Sesame Street. They're like the only.
Well, there are others. There are others. Family Guy and things like that. But yeah, it's so funny. How much 2D there is on television. So even though there's not a lot of features being done in 2D, it's still there's still a lot of work out there, I think, and for 2D animators. So I hope it increases. It would be nice to have more, and who knows, with Netflix and studios like that, never know.
Right. So how would you sum up your career after so much amazing work you've done over the years,
Sum up my career. Well,
touching generations like myself.
I tell you, all I can say is that I have been extremely blessed to be in a position where I was at the right place at the right time. And how my steps have been directed, through God's hands to where I am. I was able to work on a lot of shows and a lot of popular movies that people love and respond to, and able to use my craft to entertain. I mean, that's something you just, I don't know. I think it's just gratitude. Not only was I able to work on this stuff, but also learn from some of the top people in the business. And I've learned a lot from my fellow animators, and still continue to learn, hopefully.
Right.
It's been a great career, and I'm hoping it's not over. You just never know what comes up. But yeah, I'm just very grateful and thankful to God for allowing me to work in a business like this and have the experiences and opportunities that I've had.
Yeah, and you've had quite a good you guys, from that came in the 70s and 80s that touched all those movies from Disney in the 80s and 90s and even in the early 2000s. I mean, you guys were ironic. Y'all touched all of our lives, including myself, and main thing I can tell you though, Nick, like I tell all of them, was thank you for your contribution, for what you did. You made characters that changed the world and left an impact for many years, even years later down the road. I mean, I appreciate what you did.
I appreciate that, Matt, and hopefully all my work won't be replaced with live action remakes, so that more people will enjoy it.
Yeah, it seems like that a lot of y'all movies are being remade each year. So yeah.
Yeah.
First time I just saw the remake of Beauty and the Beast.
I don't know. It was okay. It's so funny. A lot of people would say about the Beauty and the Beast thing, they answered a lot of questions. They solved a lot of the problems with the original. It's like, well, yeah, you had 20 years to mull it over and think about, and even then there's still problems with that new version too. There's a funny online YouTube series called Pitch Meeting, which I like to watch now and then, and and he does a take on the live action Beauty and the Beast. A lot of it really is pretty accurate as far as its problems and things. It's pretty funny too. So yeah, that pretty much says it all.
Which character did you design that you touched out of all the characters you've done? Which character did you enjoy working on the most, and which one was a challenge when you did it?
They all have their challenges in certain aspects, and they all have their. I mean, you got to understand. Saying that is like asking me which one of your 5 children do you like the most. That's not an easy question to ask. And I'll give you a reason. Each character that I worked on, the theme throughout all of them, they're basically comedy characters. And to me, that was my desire. I like doing comedy relief and stuff. The great thing about the characters I got to work on was that they weren't all second bananas. I did Lumiere. He was a second banana, okay? I did Miko. He was a second banana, but he was a pantomime. So I learned something from him. Hades, comedy character, but he was a villain. So I learned something from that. Kuzco, he was a comedy character, but he was the main character. He was the star. So he was the primary character of that film. Charlotte, she was a comedy character and a second banana in a way, but she was a female. So I was able to animate a woman, which I always wanted to do. I always wanted to animate a female character, and only rarely did I get a chance to do that. Jessica and things like that, and Ariel and all that, but not to extent actually supervise one. So with each of those characters, there was a difference to make it interesting, but a similarity that I was able to focus and play on my strengths. And so that's why I said very blessed to be given the characters that I was given, because it's a well-rounded group of performances that helped me to grow as an artist and an animator. So can't ask for better than that.
Absolutely, and that was the best answer you gave me there. Before I let you go, Nick, I forgot to ask you about you mentioned him, Hades on Hercules. The funniest scene to me was when his hair blew out. He was like, "Oh, is my hair out?"
That is my wife's favorite scene too. Unfortunately, I didn't animate that. That was animated by Bolem Bushiba, I think. I think that was his. Yeah. Which again, those Paris animators really saved my butt on that film, because there was a lot of Hades, and we need to get through a lot. So we sent some of the scenes to Paris, to the Paris studio, to be animated. And Sergio and Bolem and some of those others, they handled some of the Hades stuff and did a great job. So that's a great scene. And if you really want to see exactly what I did on that film, as far and any of the other films, you go to my Facebook page, Nik Ranieri Animator, and then you go through the history of it all the way back to 2013. I just went through my entire career and posted pencil tests and photos and talked about working on each of the scenes. So if you want to check that, anybody wants to check that out, they can. I haven't updated it for a year. Because I stopped right after Princess and the Frog, because those last years of working at Disney, kind of tough. But I'll get back to it eventually. But if you want to do that, if you want to check that out, you can. I think I lost you. Did I lose you? There you are.
Sorry about that. I dropped my phone. Sorry about that.
Okay.
But yeah, that and Hunchback, when y'all did those two movies, those two were the movies I watched where I
didn't work on Hunchback.
Right. It took me a while to kind of understand the meaning of both those movies, but after I years later, when I got older and rewatched Hercules and Hunchback, I finally understood them. But Hercules, I love Go the Distance. That's like an inspirational song to me.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, there's a lot of good things. I mean, if you look at Hercules, it's kind of like an animated version of Superman the movie. The Christopher Reeve Superman movie. It's kind of like that, only half the time. but yeah, it's there's a lot of good stuff in it, and working on that film with that character, that was an unusual performance. That's what appealed to me. He was, James Woods did a great job of the voice, being menacing and comical and all that. That was great. That Hades was a great experience. Tough, very tough, but because he had so much cloth and overlap and all that stuff, a lot of line mileage on that character. But and I didn't do the hair. That was effects. Did that. I had a couple of really good, James Mansfield and Joey Mildenberger. I think I got his name right. Those guys, they did a great job with the hair, doing the Hades hair and stuff like that. Like I said, a collaborative effort really makes a good product.
And it's ironic watching him because his hair is technically, even though it's blue, it's on fire. And it's like, he's a villain. All he got to do is blow his hair out, and he'll maybe be quiet. Because I saw that scene, he was like, "Whoa, is my hair out?"
Well, it's interesting. They initially said, "I don't know if we want to do the hair animated. It may be, people may be distracted by it." And I said, "They'll be distracted by it for about the first 2 or 3 scenes, and then they'll forget they're even seeing it. It'll just be part of them. So I wouldn't worry about it." And they said, "Yeah, that's probably right." So I'm glad they made that decision to leave that, because that's a cool element.
Yeah. And lastly, what do you, when you're not busy, do you have a favorite TV show that you watch?
I haven't had a lot of time to watch TV shows. Usually I sort of watch what my wife watches, and so she's watched things like, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so I got into that with her, and then she's watching like The Blacklist, so I watched that with her and things like that. But I haven't really gotten into much anything else. It's been a while. I'm usually working.
Were you back in the day? Were you watching Home Improvement, Full House, any Empty Nest, any of those shows? Roseanne.
My TV show watching was like I said, 60s and 70s and things like that, and I would watch I get DVD collections of those, and I raised my kids on those. So, growing up, they would go to school. They get mad at me because they go to school and the kids would be talking about Hannah Montana or whatever is out there. And they would be going, yeah, but did you see Green Acres? And they're going, what? Did you see Gilligan's Island? It's like, what? And I don't care because those are quality things. I would put on Bewitched. I put on Dick Van Dyke Show. A lot of that stuff is what I would base my humor on. I get a lot of things from those shows, Watching Dick Van Dyke on the Dick Van Dyke Show, his expressions and things, you get a lot of. It wasn't exaggerated and over the top. It wasn't hammy acting, but it was real, and you get a lot of ideas from that type of performance. He was a genius at that, and my kids never really got into Dick Van Dyke because it was in black and white. It wasn't in color, but still, that type of thing. Batman, the Monkeys, Bewitched, I Dream of Jeannie, all that stuff. That's the stuff I would show them, and I'm not ashamed of that.
It's fine. I love to watch the Andy Griffith Show, and at my job, they always make a joke reference because you got Barney who has only one bullet and is in his pocket. He never actually puts in the gun.
Right.
So,
there's another one. The whole thing with Kuzco going, whoa, no touchy, no touchy. I mean, that's Don Knotts, basically. I got that from, these are weapons, that's Don Knotts. That's where I got that stuff from,
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm a big Andy Griffith fan, and I watched him when he did Matlock years later.
Yeah.
And the other show that I watched that they reference at work a lot is Leave It to Beaver, because my manager's name is John Cleaver. So whenever I hear Cleaver, when I first came there, I was like, "Are you related to Beaver and them?" Because I never met nobody up in the show named Cleaver. So when I first got there, I was like, "His last name is Cleaver." Okay.
Is your dad's name Ward by any way?
So when my first week there, I had my phone and I played the theme where he went, "Leave it to Beaver." Man, it's something there. But Nick, I'm glad that I know before we tried to do this, but I'm glad now we was able to do this podcast. I'm glad you took, we was able to, take time out of your schedule to be a part of my podcast, and we talked about Disney and other things. Man, I could talk to you and everybody else forever at Disney because we all got the same interests and likes. Yeah.
Well, hey, do keep in touch because it sounds like we have a lot in common. So let me know how you're doing. That would be great. You have my email and all that. So
absolutely. I always ask everybody who I interview first because I was doing it over the phone, but now I'm doing it live. I always ask, do you have an interest to come back? So I'm gonna ask you. You have an interest to come back?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, this is normally my off day, so I normally do Mondays, or in the evening, Tuesday, Thursday, or Fridays after I get off work. So I know it's different in California time, but 6 p.m. on my end. So that would be maybe 3 p.m. on your end. But we can do another Monday. I'll reach out to you between now and before sometime in November, if you have some time in November, and we'll do another video.
Okay, well, we'll play it by ear. I mean, but let's see how it goes. Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you, Nick, for doing this, and you and your family, y'all stay safe out there because Corona is still going on out there, and y'all be safe. And I'll be
you, Matt. especially, you know, the problems in Baltimore and things like that. You stay safe too, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's I thank God that I know God. I was baptized last year by my best friend who I went to high school with. He baptized me, and that's all I do. You know, I go to
That's
work,
awesome.
stay in faith.
That's
And
great.
my mother is
And
still
you know what? That's the solution to all of this. You know,
yeah.
that is the solution. It's not it's I don't know. It's not violence. It's God. That's the solution.
Right.
And I hope more people realize that. I yeah. So, but anyways, thank you so much, Matt, for you know, having me on, and let's hope that that this is the first of many conversations.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm like I said, I was a big fan of Disney at that time and era, and I keep up with Disney a little bit, but not too much. I guess because I'm older now. The Princess and the Frog was the last film I've seen. I still never seen Tangled. I still haven't seen that yet, but
That's a good film.
Yeah,
terrible to
I
work
got
on. Good film. I'm sorry.
it's cool. I'm gonna check it out. Like I said, I got Disney Plus, and there's a lot of films from over the years on there. I just got done watching the full final cut of Davy Crockett because I love Fess Parker. I just got done watching that, so I'm gonna check out Tangled. But I'll be in contact with you, man.
All right, Matt. We'll talk to you soon then.
Okay.
Okay.
See you, Nick.
See ya.
Well, guys, anybody who's been watching or will be watching, I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching another episode of PE Slick Podcast / Soaps Pass. I plan to have some others from Disney come on board and from the soap world as well. Next week, I'm going to have Carl Evans, who was Alan Michael Spalding, on next week. And I'm working on getting Don Hahn, who was a Disney producer. I'm working on getting him on board and some others. And but thank you for tuning in. And until next time, y'all be safe out there and have a good night now. Bye-bye.